Welcome everyone. Today I'm reading from Rays of the One Light. These are commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, written by Swami Kriyananda and based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Our topic this morning is, does Satan exist? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The Bible tells us in chapter 4 of the Gospel of St. Matthew, then after baptism, Jesus was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. To most modern minds, this passage seems quaintly obsolete. Psychologists would say, and have said, in fact, that the temptation of Jesus, if it occurred at all, was purely psychological. They call it a projection of desires lurking in his own subconscious mind. The subconscious definitely plays a strong part, certainly, even if not a unique one, in any testing the spiritual seeker must undergo. The Bhagavad Gita, in dealing with this undeniable reality, quotes Arjuna in the 3rd chapter and then Sri Krishna's reply. Arjuna says, "Tell me, teacher, by what force doth man go to his ill, unwilling, as if one pushed him in that path?" Krishna replies, "Desire it is, passion it is, born of the darknesses, which pusheth him. Mighty of appetite, sinful and strong is this man's enemy." Yet even Sri Krishna describes passion as born of the darknesses. The fact is, as Yogananda wrote in Autobiography of a Yogi, all thoughts vibrate eternally in the cosmos. Thoughts are universally and not individually rooted. Truth cannot be created, but only perceived. Psychology, yes, but psychology attuned to currents of consciousness that pervade the entire universe, attracted by each of us according to our own personal inclinations. Yogananda, quoted in Swami's book, The Path, said, "I used to think Satan was only a human invention, but now I know and add my testimony to those who have lived before me that Satan is a reality. He is a universal conscious force whose sole aim is to keep all beings bound to the wheel of delusion. We should take pains, therefore, to attract uplifting currents of universal consciousness and to avoid attracting the negative, which, disease that it is, can infect our thoughts, even while it leads us to believe that our thoughts are of our own making." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. This is a revolutionary thought, really, that there are waves of consciousness, there are currents of consciousness in this world. And we think that our own suffering, our own thoughts that are restless and unhappy, that they're of our own making. But they are a wave of energy. You can think of it like a radio station. We can tune into the horror station, talking about creepy things, or we can tune into a station that's joyful and happy. It's our choice. And if we find ourselves filled with thoughts that are fear-filled or negative or full of hate or anxiety, any of the negative emotions, that's the beauty of this path. We have the power to change them. We don't have to feel stuck in that. We have the tools to change our consciousness. One of the easiest ones of all is Swami's music. I was a choir director for many, many years, decades, and I heard it all from excuses of why people couldn't come to choir practice. My dog ate my homework, that on and on and on and on of why they couldn't come. But very often, more often than not, people would come and then afterwards they'd say, I was so tired. I really didn't want to come tonight. It was all I could do to get myself in the car and come over here. But now I'm so glad I did, because now I'm full of energy. Now I'm happy. Now I'm uplifted. Over and over and over, I heard that. We have the power to choose. Some years ago, I read about this study. People wanted to know how much free will we have. And scientists, they went into this study thinking, we have all kinds of free will. We choose to have a cup of coffee, we choose to get up, we choose to, all kinds of choices all day long. We have free will. Little by little, through their study, they realized, we have habits. We don't have free will. The only free will that we have is right now. This moment, right now. We can choose what we do right this second. There was a very memorable little clip in this video that I was watching about the study. It was a man going down a spiral staircase, and he was eating a donut and reading a newspaper. He wasn't looking where his feet were going at all. I kept thinking, I hope a child didn't leave a roller skate on the stairs. But he was just going by habit. And that's a lot of what we do in life. We just go on automatic pilot. But we have the power to choose. Turn on the TV set or not. And if we do turn it on, are we going to watch creepy, scary things about all the evil in the world, or all the pain in the world, or all the suffering and tragedies and all the stuff that we can tune into? It's right there. It's plentiful, it's waiting. It's so happy to have our attention. But you can think of this life very simply as an up arrow or a down arrow. And that's your choice. Our teachings say that every positive thought that we have, every feeling that's positive, That's why it's so important. I keep harping on this. I think I say it every Sunday service, but you have to fill your mind with truth. Fill your mind with the teachings. So that was the power of Swami's music. Swami's music is all the teachings. And he used to call it painless philosophy. Philosophy in song. And people, we had a couple of nationwide tours in the late 70s. I was on one of them, and Swami went all through America, major cities, and Canada. And the format was a Friday night free lecture, and then a Saturday workshop. Well, at the beginning of every program, a group of singers would sing a couple of songs like we sang this morning. And at the end, so 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning. And at the end of the program, we would sing this song called Peace, 1 minute. And then in between, Swami would stand, like I am, for an hour and a half and give a beautiful lecture every night. It was beautiful, different. And at the end of the program, after the singers wrapped up with singing one song, Swami would stand out there and he would shake hands with everybody. And people would greet him, and it got to be a joke because they would say, "Oh, Swami, we love the music." And Swami, "I talked for an hour and a half. What they remember is the music." But he said the reason why is that the music goes right into the heart. It bypasses all the intellectual whatever that people think when they're watching something. And you just feel it. So fill your mind with Swami's music, with the teachings, and work on making yourself magnetic. Because that vibration, what we choose in every moment, creates an energy, creates a vibration. Everything in this universe has a vibration. Even the floor, the chair you're sitting on, everything has a vibration. We especially. All of creation was made from vibration, the vibration of Om. So that vibration matters. It's where we go when we die. We're drawn to a heaven or a hell in that strata of heaven that resonates with our vibration. Do we want to have a vibration of fear and anxiety? No. We want to have a vibration of joy and giving. And how do we do that? How do we create that? Trust in God. Turning our lives over to God more and more in every moment, asking Him to help us. In every moment, offering our experience up to Him. The more we lean on Him, instead of, well, I got this, I know what to do, and then you crash into something. The more we ask His help, He's right there. That's what He's been waiting for all eternity, for us to turn to Him and ask. Nothing makes Him happier than to help us. I read an interesting thing talking about the vibration that we go to after death. St. Teresa said, after we die, we wear what we are. Isn't that great? We wear who we are, not what we think we are or how young and beautiful we are. We wear our consciousness. And so we need to make our consciousness shine. We do that by fighting every negative thought, fighting every negative feeling. I had a friend and coworker that I had to work closely with every day who had a tendency to just talk about other people negatively, and I felt, when she'd get into that stuff, I felt like I was playing spiritual tennis. Now it's this, like, batting it. If she'd say something negative about somebody, I'd go, yeah, and they really are a good cook. Whatever I could think of, it was positive. And change the subject. You just dancing around this negativity. It was exhausting, but it was good exercise, because that's what we need to do in ourselves. Everybody feels fear at some point or feels anxiety. We have to fight it. Don't put that stuff in your mind. It's like a friend of mine used to, watch programs about ghosts and stuff, and I said, please don't do that. Don't fill your mind with that stuff. Fill your mind with something that's going to help you, that's going to soothe your spirit, uplift you, give you something to hold on to. I know I have had, sometimes, it hasn't happened for some years, thank God, but I used to wake up in the night sometimes fearful, especially after some of the elections. And I would find myself just clenched in fear. And I started practicing an affirmation. That's the thing about this path. We have so many tools to help us. In the middle of the night, all I could do was say, I live in the light of God's perfect love. I live in the light of God's perfect love. And I would say that over and over as long as it took till I fell asleep again. We have to relax into that love. We think this world is the reality. And it is a reality, for sure. We have to pay our bills. We have to, live and have food and all those sorts of things. But the beautiful thing about Christ's temptation, which is what this, going back to the reading, is the first temptation that the devil said to him, oh, you've been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, and now you're hungry, but you have the power of God. So here, this rock right here, why don't you turn it into bread? And Jesus, it's reasonable. You're hungry after 40 days and 40 nights. But Jesus said, don't you know that man does not live by bread alone? He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't get something for himself, because it would just reinforce his ego consciousness. And what he wanted was to be firm in the fact that God is his sole sustenance. Now, I have a little ways to go before I can feel that. I think all of us probably think, whoa, that's pretty intense. But every time that we have that positive thought of I live by God's grace, it's up to him what happens to me, what happens to my property, what happens to my family, what happens to my friends. Will I survive? Will I have enough? All those fear thoughts, replace them. I live by God's grace. And then, what happens? We feel that joy of living for God. And that's the true reality. How many times have you heard me say, quoting Yogananda, we have to stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. He didn't say, and you have to be able to fix the breaking worlds. He just said, you have to be calm. You have to be so in love with God, so trusting that God will take care of you, that you can be calm, even if an asteroid's hitting the earth or whatever happens. That's the test of life. That's what life is all about. Going more and more deeply into love for God. And that satanic influence, it's like when Yogananda, I'm not sure of the circumstances, but he had, it might have been when he helped to feed 1,000 people in India. It was something like that anyway, if it wasn't that particular day. But he was very, very tired. He had really worked very hard that day, and he came home exhausted, fell on the bed. And then he remembered, oh, I forgot to meditate. I can't go to sleep yet. And he heard this, just in his mind, saying, oh, poor boy. You're so tired. You worked so hard today. You don't have to meditate today. You worked too hard. He said, no. And he got up and he meditated. He said, never go to sleep unless you felt that contact of God. Some joy, some peace, something in your heart. Or if nothing else, just turn towards God and cling to his feet. Help me. I used to joke about fetal position in front of the altar. You just clinging to that light. Never go to bed unless you've done that. And that way, we train ourselves. Everybody has a restless mind. There's just a lot of static on that radio. It takes willpower, it takes devotion, it takes commitment to sensitively tune our radio of our minds to the light, to joy, to divine love. And that's the purpose of our lives. God bless you.
I thought to share a practical, let me get rid of this thing. Share a practical suggestion for getting the mask off my face. Practical thought to segue onto what Nirmala was saying about Swamiji's music, which is, there is I think it's an app, but even if it's not an app, it's a website. There's a Ananda Radio, and it's 24/7, all 365 days of the year, and it's Swamiji's music. And you can pick vocal music, you can pick instrumental music, and I think you can pick talks too, although I'm not positive about that part because I don't tune into it that often myself. I have Swamiji's music going through my head pretty much all day, every day anyway, so I don't need a radio playing at me. But it can really help just to have something, a reference point, and there's a lot of variety in it. I wanted to touch on the song that we sang earlier because there can be a little confusion, and I've often been surprised at how much confusion there can be about one verse in that song. Swamiji says, cowards see but pride in singularity. Oh, never mind if men are wrong, so long as they agree. Come, you're a man, no passive stone. Stand up and call your soul your own. What he's saying is that is the attitude of a coward, is to just look for the mass of people and go where they're going. Whatever they must be right, let me follow them. Swamiji often said, it's very unusual for the majority to be right. Occasionally the minority is right, but he was basically saying most people are wrong most of the time about most things. Don't follow that. Follow the truth that's in your heart and know that truth. It's fascinating that this subject, does Satan exist, is paired with the affirmation generosity, because if you think of those two energies, generosity is an expression of devotion. Nirmala was talking about the importance of devotion. Generosity is just a manifestation of that outwardly. We feel devotion, we naturally feel to share with people. Whatever that sharing may be, it doesn't necessarily mean pulling out your wallet. It can just mean giving energy, giving support, giving a smile to people, something as simple as that. And that energy alone, people feel it, people get it. It's very definite. It's fascinating to look to, and I love the comparison of the Bible and the Gita in this week's reading, because the Gita gives a very nuanced view of the battle that we face. And one of the aspects of that battle that is really fascinating, this is again a segue to what Nirmala was saying, habit is a really, really important force in our lives. And in the beginning of our lives, it's a crucial help to make good habits and to develop that and give energy to it. However, in the battle of life, and one of the ways that battle is captured or expressed to us in the spiritual tradition is the battle of Kurukshetra, which is what the great epic, the Mahabharata, expresses or leads to, and it's what in the Bhagavad Gita that we read from every week takes place on the eve of that big battle. Habit fights on the wrong side. Habit is one of the enemies of the good guys. And you may think, well, what on earth? And habit not only trained the bad guys, he trained the good guys. I mean, we're all family, they're all cousins, they all got trained together by habit. And yet habit must be defeated. And why? Because habit cannot make you go up the up staircase, follow the upward arrow. Habit cannot create devotion. Habit can get you moving and get the energy going in the right direction, but ultimately it has to come from a higher level than just habit. So habit had to get defeated, had to get knocked off. And that force, Duryodhana, who's guiding all of the enemies, is called King Material Desire. And he's always trying to say, no, it's just the body. No, it's just the material world. No, it's like, he's like this. It reminds me of a bumper sticker that I saw years ago. Gravity, period. It's not just a good idea, it's the law. And, taking off of that seatbelt, not just a good idea, it's the law. Well, okay, gravity, it's the law. Well, yeah, it's the law. It's like 24/7. Gravity doesn't take a day off. It's not like if you're on Earth, you can just see that Tuesday afternoon at 2:00, gravity's going to be offline. Quick, let's jump and we can get into orbit. No, it doesn't work like that. It's a force, and it's one of the reasons that Yogananda gave us this amazing aphorism, environment is stronger than willpower, and one to meditate on deeply, is because environment is 24/7. I used to build homes for a living for many years, and I remember us saying, I believe this is attributed to Winston Churchill, we build the buildings, but then that process is done. Then the buildings for the rest of our lives build us in a certain way of looking at it. We build this structure, But then we live in the darn thing and it influences us all the time. Well, if it influences us in a good direction, that's fantastic. But if it's pulling us down, ooh, not so good. And it's all the time. This topic, I wanted to share because one of the beautiful things the Indian scriptures do, and to a degree the Bible as well, is they help us personalize forces that are universal, but that we may not, gravity, okay, we can sort of get the concept, I jump up, oop, I came back down. It's like force goes up, oop, force is going to come right back down. Okay, we can see the effect of that. But gravity is not a person for us. There's not as far as I know, there is not an Indian deity called gravity, gravitita or whatever. Maybe there is one. If there is, forgive me, I just have never heard of it before. Probably, if you can imagine it, there is a deity connected with it. But anyway, there's a beautiful novel that Swamiji read and appreciated and even recommended, and I was a bit surprised. Novel by Marie Corelli. She wrote the book The Life Everlasting, which was the only novel that Yogananda was ever known to have read from cover to cover. Well, she wrote another book called The Sorrows of Satan, and it's a fascinating book. I read it myself some years ago, and I really enjoyed it. And you may think, what on earth? How could you tell a story? Well, Satan is a main character in this story, and he is this prince. He is this extraordinary, wealthy, magnetic, he's like an influencer in the world. And he tries to tempt people with fame, with money, with success, with all the trappings related to those things. And he often succeeds. In fact, he usually succeeds. But every once in a while, he runs up against somebody, and there's a character in this novel that he fails to seduce. It's a lady with the initials MC, which sort of makes you think of Marie Corelli. But anyway, towards the end, after he has completely and utterly failed to influence her at all, she asks him, you have to tell me your story. And he does. And he says, I was close to God, Lucifer, child of the morning or son of the morning, whatever. And he said, but God created mankind in his own image and gave all this energy. And they said that they have all this amazing potential. And he said, I was jealous. And I said, I will show that these people have weakness. I will prove that they're not all that they're cracked up to be. Well, he said, in the presence of God, you cannot speak untruth. He cursed himself to be obliged to tempt people for all eternity, for as long as the drama is going on. He's obliged to give his best shot to fulfill those words, as he made a promise. Now, here's the interesting thing in the novel, is that every time he has given it his best shot and he fails, he gets to spend an hour in the presence of God. And so he actually wants to fail. But he has to give it his best shot in order to say, I tried, and it didn't work for this person. Therefore, I get my moment in heaven again. And if you think about all the things that we can be tempted by, and he tries all of it, all the nice things. Well, then if that doesn't work, then he tries all the scary things. Then it's like, oh, I'm going to challenge your body, or I'm going to challenge your family, or I'm going to try to scare the daylights out of you in one way or another. And if that doesn't work, then there's not really much else that he has to offer. He tried 3 different ways with Christ, make the stone into bread, fling yourself off this mountain and the angels will protect you, it'll all work out just fine. That didn't pass. The last one was look over the vast world God has given me charge over the whole thing. All you have to do is bow down to me and you can have the whole schmear. And Christ is like, no, I don't think so. Well, how can you stand up to temptation like that? You have bliss in your heart. There's no competition. There's nothing that can beat that. There's nothing else that's more than that. So when, as Nirmala was saying, we choose our own consciousness, we literally wear that consciousness when we leave the body. We actually wear it all the time, but I mean, it's a little more evident when we leave the body, because we don't have a body to go back to. We choose that consciousness. Let's choose the light. Choose the influences and stay with those that uplift us. And we can live in that light. We can become channels for that light.